What's going on, guys? I'm hanging out with Sam, who is the CEO of Echo. Today, we're going to talk about, his journey, the company's journey, talk a little bit about crypto, the market. So, Sam, thanks for joining us, man.
Hi, Zach. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate that.
For sure, man. So let's get into the mission, the story of Echo, and what you guys got cooking up. I will pull up the website a little bit too as you talk,
Okay.
but yeah, take us through kind of I guess from the beginning and kind of where you guys are heading.
Sure. I mean, the Echo journey started cool. Three years ago now. So last bull run, really, I guess, or around that time. And it was a moment I had, I suppose, while uh, having made some winnings, so to speak, inside cryptocurrency. Um, at that time, it was quite difficult to bridge stuff out. And what I was particularly interested in was not so much bridging out to to spend, but bridging out to uh, you know try and buy other asset classes effectively. So the term echo ultimately comes from the idea of echoing real world assets. So this was in an era before the term real world asset was a thing. So we coined this idea of an echo. So you would custody, the idea being that you would custody a real world asset and then mint a token on the chain. But more than that, the Echo platform effectively wants to be an all-in-one platform, which you can come and stay in, with neobank rails, the cryptocurrency wallets, the whole lot. So that's the plan.
How do you plan on standing out in I guess it's not a crazy crowded space, but certainly, crypto's becoming more mainstream, by the day, by the week, by the year. So how do you plan on kind of standing out ahead of the competition?
Yeah, it's a tricky one really because it's a broad spectrum of product which we're offering, whereas there tends to be more focus in particular areas. So the big exchanges, for example, although they are starting to touch on it now, but Coinbase, Binance, etc., were very focused heavily on exchange, to the detriment of other asset classes. And in the same breath, you had the traditional financial institutions which absolutely did not want to touch cryptocurrency. So there was this. I think there's a middle ground play here, to have this platform where you can buy all asset classes effectively is the plan. But in terms of differentiation, there's lots of things. We have a token, Echo token, which is attached to the platform, and that's a real yield token. And what that means is that 50% of top line revenue on the exchange is passed on proportionally to Echo token holders. So that basically means normally in an exchange, there's a fee on trade, and the exchange keeps the fee. But what we do is we say 50% of the fee, which runs through Echo, is taken and passed on to Echo token holders. But importantly, though, it's passed on in stable coin as opposed to just in more Echo token. So you don't get this inflationary pressure, which you see quite often with other cryptocurrencies.
Yeah. So, in terms of kind of your path, you mentioned there a minute ago that you kind of got into crypto relatively early. I'm curious just to hear your thoughts. I know people love to hear that kind of, those kind of feel good stories in
Sure.
crypto. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I I founded my first business when I was 21, which was a research and development company, and that was engineering, but spanners, not code. So I did that for a while, doing patent work, and so I was used to the idea of licensing product at that point. Um, it did come a point though where I decided that I wanted something uh, which was more my own, I suppose, as opposed to having to sell stuff off to big companies. And the the cryptocurrency space, I always liked the cryptocurrency space, and I really thought that there was an opportunity here to create. And I hate the phrase, but I'll say it anyway, an Apple style ecosystem
Mm.
where all of the individual tools just work and speak to each other. So you don't have to have this disparate thing where you're searching around for all these various bits and pieces on different platforms, and have it all under that Echo banner.
Yeah, when you come back to tokenization and this whole idea, obviously it's become kind of a buzzword in crypto a little bit, but obviously, I mean, you've got companies that are starting to tokenize, financial instruments like U.S. Treasuries, U.S. equities. There's a lot of talk now that all of your stocks will eventually be tokenized. What's your take on all of this? I mean, where do you think we are in terms of like the timeline? Obviously, you want to be ahead of the game, building a
Yeah,
company, but
there's a
like, how
yeah,
far are we off? Like, how far are we away?
there's a massive gap between what retail customers or what normal people see and what institutions are up to in the background for sure. So like BlackRock and JP Morgan, like JP Morgan has built out Onyx 2 years ago, which was a tokenization engine in the back at the same time that Jamie Dimon was saying absolutely no cryptocurrency. So I mean, these guys are a bit further along than people realize, and I think the cat's out the bag really with that already. I think a lot of clearing and stuff will be done on chain as well. The main issue currently for institutional types is there's a regulatory issue for them, but they're also mostly running on private chains. So they're running on internal private chains, and that's not necessarily bridging into what would be considered public chains like Ethereum or Solana or something like that. They're running internal chains for their own company, as opposed to allowing the tokenization to exit out, into public space. So it's an interesting position to be in. I think there's been trial runs a little bit. Some of the BIDL stuff, some of the stuff over on Base has been interesting. A lot of private chain stuff. I know Polymesh, for example, one of them, Ondo, Secret's coming out soon. They're all kind of starting to touch on trying to do this public private chain blending, I suppose. But for me, one of the biggest problems of all is it's the same thing. It's a disparate situation where what you really need is you need the brokerage in one place. And you're getting companies that want to tokenize stuff, but they're not necessarily attached to an exchange as well. So you're creating an asset class, but with nowhere to do anything with it.
Right.
So you get this situation where to what end, why tokenize something, and
What are the
without,
benefits? Yeah.
what the benefits, and without the tooling underneath it, without the DeFi tools underneath it, without Aave style Borrowland protocols, without all the various things you can do inside DeFi, why bother? Really.
Yeah.
It's sort of I think sometimes people tokenize stuff because it's kind of buzzy, like you said, like it's a cool thing to be seen to be doing. But we're thinking much more practically than that. We're thinking about what happens after. What happens after you tokenize something? Why would I want to tokenize something? Why turn my digital stock into a tokenized equivalent? So
Yeah, one of the things within tokenization, I think that resonates with me in terms of like, it being practical is real estate. Like I can
yeah.
see a world where this is really beneficial. It creates a fairer system, especially when you start talking about, fractionalized real estate. There was just some news out recently, that in Dubai there's a big project that they're doing with like XRPL, and they're going to start
Mhm.
tokenizing real estate over there and fractionalizing it, because to me that's great. You may not have the funds, to
Yep.
get into real estate individually, but collectively with a group of
Yes.
people, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And for me, you know, obviously there's a speculative portion in real estate, but a massive part of it as well is the yield on it, right? Is the rents
Yeah.
basically. So you need a tokenization engine which allows yield as well as just fractionalization, which is a big part of the real estate play. I mean, for me, my thoughts on real estate, tokenizing real estate, has always been that it will be most effective under stuff like real estate investment trusts or
Mm.
SPV special vehicles, to package up real estate in such a way, because and then there's also a certain like volume of property which is required for this thing to work properly. It's practically very difficult to tokenize like your personal house, but it makes much more sense to tokenize commercial property or tokenize a real estate investment trust, which effectively has lots and lots of individual homes in.
Mhm.
But you can buy a piece of that as well.
So we're talking about tokenization. Obviously, this is part of Echo's mission is to tokenize the world. So how do you guys fit into this what I think is kind of the next big wave. I think this is where the institutions are going to pour in. Obviously, we've
Yeah.
seen it with Bitcoin ETFs, but all you have to do is listen to Larry Fink talk, right? They usually get what they want over at BlackRock. And he immediately shifted his focus as soon as the ETFs went live to
Yeah.
tokenization. Everything needs to be reimagined, redesigned for the blockchain. So how does Echo plan to kind of carve out their path here?
I think it's really interesting when Larry did that. Actually, I think even he didn't quite realize what the uptake would be on that Bitcoin ETF. That it was, I think it was the fastest growing ETF in history. I think it ended up being, and I think even they didn't quite realize the scale of the demand around cryptocurrency assets, Bitcoin in particular for institutions, but cryptocurrency generally as well. Sorry, Zach. Ask me the question again. I got off track there.
No. Essentially. So then his attention after the whole ETF, craze. I don't even want to say it's died down, but his next big thing that he brought up was, hey, the next thing is tokenization, and 24/7 trading, and obviously everything needs to be redesigned, reimagined for the blockchain. So how does Echo kind of fit into a tokenized world?
Yeah.
Like how's it going to benefit this initiative?
I think it's massively important to consider what it's like being an institution about to face the blockchain thing head on. And they have massive amounts of like legacy software, like old administrative issues, and it's really quite difficult for them to pivot. It's like turning an oil tanker, for some of these big institutions to move on this stuff. And they will come, and it will be a big deal when they do come. But there's a space right now for companies such as Echo, which are blockchain native, like we're building from the ground with this, as opposed to like trying to add it on afterwards. And there's a speed there, which makes a massive difference as well. That we can build the system out with the latest technology on the exchange side, and like I said, we're building blockchain native as opposed to bolting it, which is a big deal.
So when it comes to the exchange side, what are you all doing? Again, I guess a similar question, to one I asked earlier, but there's a lot of competition here. So what is it that you guys want to do? Because so much of this is kind of brand and obviously user interface. I think is huge when it comes to exchanges. So what are some of the things you guys are doing in order to separate yourself here?
Yeah, one of the people like saving a buck. One of the big things is that we got. I think I don't want to make an absolute statement here on lowest fees, but we're at 0.1 10 BP fees, which is low, especially for the taker side as well. Having a 0.1 fee is low. That also extends across both of our trading platforms, because we have two really. We have Echo X, which is like a kill or fill style exchange platform, and then we have Echo Pro, which is with the charting, proper matching engine, etc. But that 0.1 extends across both. A lot of our competition, for example, kind of kills retail on the simple tools. It's not uncommon for them to do 1% or 0.5. So you're looking massively reduced costs. We have deep liquid too through our liquidity partners. So it's not this situation which you often get with new exchanges, where it's kind of, you have liquidity issues on new exchanges normally because you need someone on the other side of the trade, right? So you get this chicken and egg situation normally with new exchanges where there's no one on the other side to pick up your trade. So for us, because we've got billion-dollar market makers running through this thing, it means that we have tight spread and low fee, which for a new exchange is quite unusual, I would say. And then there's other stuff too, which is that one of the key things for me is that a lot of the other exchanges have existed in a fairly gray zone on the regulatory side, and we are a registered VASP under the with the Isle of Man Financial Services Authority as well. So that does help.
Why the Isle of Man?
The Isle of Man is part of our wider product pathway. So we're offering some other products on top of just exchange and tokenization. It's called a protected cell company, which we're doing with Simcox Juris Trust, which is one of the top legal firms on the Isle of Man. And what it allows you to do effectively is to segregate and ring fence your digital assets inside an Isle of Man jurisdiction.
Gotcha.
That's called Echo Elite as the product.
Gotcha. So in terms of where you want to see yourself down the line, obviously you're just kind of gearing up, just kind of getting started. I don't want to say what the end game is, because I don't think necessarily that's the best question, because crypto and blockchain is changing so rapidly. But I guess in the next I don't know what's a good time frame, 8 to 12 months, maybe year two. What are kind of the things you want to accomplish?
So we have a phase one, which is basically getting all the exchange stuff up and most of the stuff associated with the cryptocurrency related tools for phase one, which most of that will be done by that point. We'll be moving on to phase two at that point too. So we'll pick up, in theory, a brokerage license as well, which will allow us to do prime brokerage, purchase securities, bonds, etc., so that we are both broker and exchange. So we can purchase stock and tokenize them directly on platform. So that will be when we start touching on the real world asset part of the platform. Beyond that, I think it's difficult to say beyond an 18-month timeline. I think a big part of it too is how the markets fare, cryptocurrency generally in that time span, what retail appetite is like during that period. I'm slightly concerned around that pump fun has kind of that retail's a bit burnt out, maybe. I don't know, from some of that, but
yeah, it is kind of weird to see Bitcoin setting all-time highs, and you don't have your best friend's dog groomer talking about Bitcoin, because that's how it was back in 2021, right?
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah, it was.
It was peak FOMO and everybody and their brothers coming in. Maybe the macro environment needs to shift and change, and I think that eventually happens. But along those similar lines, how closely are you watching kind of what the United States is doing in terms of their kind of push towards crypto adoption? Finally, here in the U.S., finally we're starting to see the doors actually open up instead of being locked out of these markets.
Yeah, there's always a difficulty with these things, because if it's done on an administrative level like it's being done, it's kind of does the new administration change it, if there is a new administration? So it's always difficult when you're kind of, a lot of it is there's pretty low trust globally in government right now, so it's very difficult for financial institutions and stuff to make predictions around this, because things are just not very stable, and there's good and bad things about that from a markets perspective, but it's for sure it's good right now. I think it's excellent that the US is obviously taking these steps, particularly for the American consumer, because they've been locked out of a lot of the things which European client and particularly Asian client have been able to do over the last 2-3 years. They've kind of been stopped from doing some of those things as well. So it's nice to see normal Americans be able to touch some of these products now inside American platforms. Yeah, I think a lot of the stuff as well around Bitcoin, I think some of it's psychological too, which sounds really stupid, but I think some of it is that 100K mark. People feel like the ship sailed a little bit, and the idea, especially because they heard just a few years ago, or they saw 10 grand a few years ago, and they go, oh, they just can't bring themselves to do the 100K buy on the Bitcoin, and I think a huge thing which would be super helpful would be to stop talking about whole Bitcoins. It needs to move to sats. I think people need to buy sats instead of buying Bitcoin. And I think that psychological shift will make a big difference for retail. I think you feel like you're getting more than a tiny slice of something.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And I think that's why, so many other altcoins sometimes, are so attractive, because you gain so many of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a great point. So in terms of like how people can get involved right now into the Echo ecosystem, where are we? I know we're kind of just beginning, but how can people get involved right now?
Sure. So we've already raised about $2.6 million sold of Echo token already. We're doing our final round of public sale of Echo token right now. You can go on echo.im and pick some up. You have to go through KYC, and then it's a USDC for Echo token buy. So you just press that start now button. So that's the most direct way, I suppose I'd say, of helping us out. Regardless of that, though, do just sign up anyway, even if you don't want to purchase Echo token, because I think it's going to be a great platform to be in, even if you don't want the token. And my marketing will kill me for saying that, but do sign up anyway. Other stuff which would be super helpful, yeah, follow us on the socials and stuff, all the standard thing. Be great just to hear a lot of feedback at this point. We're not so arrogant to think that we couldn't do stuff better. So always up for some feedback and suggestion as well. We really want this to feel like a real community exchange, and I hope the token does assist in that too, where people feel like they do sort of own the exchange, like they feel like it's their exchange. Is what I really want to try and make happen.
For sure. So, as a crypto founder, how has your world changed from just being on the other side of the fence?
Among a certain generation, there are a few dirty looks at parties for sure. If you're if you're involved in that cryptocurrency stuff,
Right.
so but it is becoming more normalized in the traditional finance space as well. I think after some of the ETFs came out, it did change a lot. More than that, though, it's all just the standard entrepreneurial journey. I mean, there's blockchain and cryptocurrency associated with it, which is a great community generally, always a laugh. But it's the standard entrepreneurial thing. It's basically, from my perspective anyway, it's like owning a fintech company. There's dev, there's marketing, all the rest of it to deal with, standard business ops. So you just get better memes, really. So.
Yeah. Along those lines, are you seeing a shift? Like, are you seeing? It feels like, I mean, I'm not completely entrenched in that world, but I'm, I guess, somewhat connected to it. I feel like there are a lot of more young TradFi professionals making the leap and seeing where this next wave is happening. Do you see that? I mean, can you speak to that in terms of people, being more open to the idea of, hey, this is actually a real thing now. Crypto, blockchain, is legitimate. It's happening. We can actually go work in this space full time now, rather than have it be this little thing over here that, it might work, might not. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, it was always considered like exotics in traditional finance, right? You're dealing exotics if you're in cryptocurrency, which was always considered, it's considered high risk. It's I think if you can offer, as a company, if you can offer remote work and something cutting edge like we're doing, you do have access to top talent, I think, because people want to play in that space because they see something's coming. Well, people which have some wits about them see that something's coming, and those are the people we want. So no, there's been a general pushback on TradFi for some time now with the younger crowd. There's not many people anymore that kind of want to sleep under the desk and get awarded a gold watch and a red tie at some point. They're after different things now, really.
Yeah. So I always ask this at the end of conversations like this. Is there anything that you want to mention or talk about that we didn't necessarily address, whether it's the token or the exchange or the vision or anything that we didn't necessarily hit on that you want to bring up?
Yeah, there's only one other major thing, which is that we're doing a Echo Community Foundation as well. So part of our tokenomics is that 30% of the total supply of Echo token will be passed to this foundation. And this is another way for us to kind of give governance vote to Echo token holders. So the way it works is that there'll be a series of categories, like research and development, charitable work, etc. And users get one vote per Echo token they hold. But you can vote, but it's all proportional vote, right? So the foundation, because it holds the Echo token, gets yield on that token, can't sell the token. So it has a kind of ongoing income, the foundation. And the idea being is that income, not the capital, is spent on these various buckets. Here you go. You got it on the screen now.
Mm-hmm.
And these items, then it allows Echo token voters to vote on these things quarterly. And what's really nice about that is sometimes in governance structures, you may agree with me or not on this, Zach, but it can sometimes feel like whales just come in and swing the whole thing.
For sure.
And we really wanted to create this thing where it felt like your vote actually made a difference. So that's why it's, it's proportional. So, even if there's one vote in a category, that proportion of money will be spent there. So it's not first past the post in politics, so it's not winner takes all.
Yeah, and I know this is probably part of the reasoning why you did this, but I'm going to ask it and just kind of get your thoughts on this. But this is so foreign in a centralized exchange world. Like, you don't get this kind of say so, on a Coinbase or Bybit or Binance or some of these top dogs, right?
Yeah, and you've absolutely nailed it. And that's where we call ourselves a CeFi DeFi platform, and at the moment it looks very CeFi. But as the phases start rolling through, you'll see more and more of that DeFi, and you'll start to see this blend of systems, which I think will be really exciting for people.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, this was a great conversation. I really enjoyed it, and I'll leave all the links down below in the description for everybody to check out so they can dig into it, do their own due diligence. And Sam, hopefully we can talk again here soon.
Yeah,
As you guys, as you guys roll out different features, would love to do it again.
Thanks so much, Zach. Cheers.
Yep. Take care.